She was built as a workboat and built for a specific purpose.
The unique thing about the Coastal Queen is she's a classic Chesapeake Bay deadrise construction.
She's a Chesapeake boat, 72 feet long and 21-foot beam.
This boat has a lot of character.
This is the biggest project I've worked on.
It's essential that we don't change the character of the boat.
Ultimately, what we're doing, we're taking the original pieces from the boat A.G. Price. We're removing and replacing all the things that haven't been worked on through the, almost a century of this boat's life.
On this project, it's really great that we've got two different, very enthusiastic individuals who are funding the project for us and allowing us to save the Queen.
So you glue them, and then you bolt them? You do what?
They'll get screwed in as well. You can see the fasteners that Chet's got coming in to the bottom planking right there.
Yeah.
Those are all the screws going into the... So they got 5,200 in between the planking and the bed-in 5,200.
We had planked the boat mostly and then removed certain sections that were, intentionally left unglued so we can pull them out and be able to clamp the stringers in place. Right now that I have the stringers in, I'm putting those sections back together. Like the other planking, we wet it out with regular West System epoxy, and then we'll put G-Flex in between the layers. So now that the stringers are in on the port side, the sections we left open so we could clamp them in place have to be put back in. So luckily at the back there, everything was on a taper, so I could put it in at the end and just hammer it into place till the old screw holes lined up perfectly, and that went in really well. Max is doing one today that is not tapered. We'll see how that goes. I'm hoping that the guidance I'm getting from the screws that have already been, put in are going to put everything where it belongs. But I'm still going to have to squeeze the third one in between these two.
Every time I do that. What about our markup on the overhead? Because you get the shim in it.
We have a Milwaukee laser level that we use when we need to paint a waterline or when we lay out pieces of the interior of the boat.
We're going to mark the bottom where the bulkhead comes down on the planking as well. So we have that all documented. So once the laser's not here, we'll know what we're building to.
The laser helps us visualize and lay out straight lines on the curved surfaces of the boat.
That's not bad. So now that the boat's wide open, we're starting to lay out these bulkheads. And so we've determined where our gyro is going to go. And structurally, we need a bulkhead on either side of that gyro. So there's one here, and the other bulkhead is right here.
So there's a couple different ways that boats are stabilized these days. Fin stabilizers, which have these, for all intents and purposes, little wings coming out the side of a boat, have been the mainstay in boat stabilization probably since about the 70s. And that is something that we have done in the past prior to the gyro stabilizer technology coming about or coming to maturity. One of the downfalls of fin stabilizers is that they point load the hull too much. And in a wooden boat, you're always trying to spread the load over a larger portion of the structure. And so having just two fins sticking out the side of the boat, we end up seeing a lot of movement in the hull because all the righting moment of the stabilization of the boat is all happening from two spots. Fins are located below the waterline. They require the boat to be in motion and water to be flowing over these wings to be able to stabilize the boat. And then they turn as necessary to sort of square things up. Whereas the gyro stabilizer, it's all internal to the boat.
So the gyro has a large stainless steel flywheel that spins on a vertical axis. So it's spinning like this at 5,000 RPM. Looks like a big, heavy motorcycle tire.
Inside the gyro sphere is a large weighted flywheel. That flywheel in that sphere is in a vacuum.
The gyro is encased in a vacuum in this sphere with the bearings on the top and the bottom that are liquid cooled. The gyro takes probably 45 minutes to spool up, so you have to turn it on before you plan on leaving the dock. And then when you shut it down at the end of the day, it might take 2 hours to stop spinning.
If the boat rolls to starboard, it imparts a force to port and vice versa in order to dampen the roll characteristics of any boat.
We use scale drawings in order to accurately depict the various timbers of the structure of the boat, and they enable us to describe for instance, the engine beds accurately relative to the center line of the shaft of the shaft log. The gyro is in a position directly behind the primary bulkhead, forward of the engine, and it sits on 2 steel I-beams that run athwart ships. We can draw all that in and prove that it fits there and prove out any details that we need to know ahead of construction time. They also are helpful when we look at it in a plan view, i.e. looking down from the deck. We can lay out the half breadths of the boat. So here you can see the main engine on center line, the gyro ahead of it on center line. We're considering fuel tanks outboard of that, but all the way forward against the primary bulkhead, which is beside the entrance companionway. 2 generators on either side of the engine. There's a holding tank planned for aft on the port side, and this is that ring frame. So we can draw all the major elements that we need in place, and then if we want to move things around, these are cutouts that are to scale, so we can play around with locations of things. We could put the fuel tanks back here and put the generator up forward. And all of those things are design elements that this kind of scale drawing facilitates the conversation.
The engine that was in the Queen, 671 Detroit's probably the most popular marine engine for decades and decades and decades, starting, World War II era. Very simple engines to work on. A little inefficient, dirty, leaks some oil for sure, loud. So we're happy that we're able to put a new modern diesel in this boat. We got our engine a couple days ago. This is a Cummins QSL 9. It's a little over 400 horse, and we're just getting it all unpackaged here. And we're gonna start to lay out a drip pan underneath, and then looking at our engine mounts to figure out if we're gonna be able to use any of these mounts or if we're gonna have to fabricate something different for our engine beds that are gonna be installed next in the boat.
In addition to the gyro, the engine is one of the core mechanical components that needs a very specific location. Tankage, generators, pumps, we can move them around as we sort of design the mechanical spaces. The gyro has a specific area it needs to be. The engine is no different. We've increased the strength of the bottom planking. We've increased the size of the stringers and the chine, as well as the frames of the boat. But ultimately, those were components that were already in the boat. We've just simply rebuilt them in a better manner. With the addition of the gyro, we then now need to add a substantial amount of additional structure, and that's going to be not only in wood, but also in what we're leaning towards at this point is in stainless steel. So we're going to put stainless steel floors in a pre-described pattern throughout the bottom of the boat. And that's going to help carry not only the engine, but most importantly the gyro, and spread the loads of the gyro throughout the hull appropriately.